Just let's take us a little bit of a case study, the Department of Education. You might remember, in terms of protests in Washington, you might remember last week, very dramatic day at the headquarters of the Department of Education. Democratic members of Congress and senators raced down to the Department of Education to stop the Trump administration's plans to try to potentially close it down on the fly, to get into all its sensitive computer systems. Weird, supposedly like self-proclaimed security guards not wearing uniforms physically blocked members of Congress from getting in there. That was last week. Democratic members of Congress are now threatening that if Republicans go ahead with plans to try to unilaterally and illegally shut down the Education Department, Democrats in Congress will refuse to help Republicans do absolutely anything in Congress. And that might sound like a sort of wan threat. That might sound like no big deal. But Republicans have such a tiny majority in the House, they need Democratic help to do pretty much anything. And yes, that includes needing Democratic votes, undoubtedly, to keep the government open and running at all past this time next month. If Democrats in the Senate are going to say no unanimous consent, no yes votes on any nominees, we're going to make you stay up all night and hold the floor for all these things. We're going to make everything go as slow as possible. We're going to grind this thing to a halt. They're using the powers of the Senate to do that. Members of the House, Democrats in the House, don't have the same toolkit that Republican, they don't have the same toolkit that Democrats have in the Senate, but they do have a toolkit. And with a margin as slim as it is in the House, with Republicans having such a tiny majority, they know they can't do anything without at least a few Democratic votes. Democrats are now saying, you want to shut down the Department of Education, you're not going to get any Democratic votes or any Democratic help for anything. We're going to bring this place to a halt. And you know, what does that mean at the Department of Education? Right? Musk and his random team of JV hackers started to announce the cancellation of contracts at the Department of Education today. On what authority? Democratic members of Congress soundedly alarmed to the press that this was happening today. While that was happening today, a federal judge heard the lawsuit that will try to kick Doge and his Musk minions out of the Department of Education, the way the courts have told them to get out of all of these other agencies. And so you've got direct action. You've got legislation threats, effectively. You've got threats in terms of the political system on Capitol Hill. You've got the press being alerted to what's going on. You've got Democrats doing everything they can, including no business as usual, to try to stop it. And no, I don't know if that will work to save the Department of Education, as now this lawsuit tries to stop Trump and Musk from what they're doing. But I do know that they've got public opinion against them on this, too, right? What Trump and Musk are trying to do to the Education Department, they don't have the people with them on this. A huge majority of voters in this country, more than 60% of all registered voters in this country, want the Department of Education to not be eliminated. And so I know that the public is going to fight them on this. I know Democrats are fighting like heck for it. I know that the courts are standing up against what they're doing here. And I know that people are in the streets in Washington and all over the country, even in places you wouldn't expect. Not just for protests, but turning out in huge numbers for organizing meetings, to organize everything they can to stop what Trump is doing. And no, I do not know if it will work, but I do know that if you don't do it, they'll take all the ground they can. And I do know that if they are going to get stopped, it's going to take everything all at once. It's going to take public opinion. It's going to take Democrats being smart. It's going to take organizing in the streets. It's going to take organizing in clever and unexpected ways. It's going to take people standing up and saying, no, we're not doing this. And I do know that from sea to shining sea, Americans are looking like they're willing to do that. Like they're willing to do what it takes to say no.